Thank you, Mary Beth, and thank you again to BMO Harris Bank for serving as our Tempo Talk sponsor. Okay, without further ado, let's welcome our panelists and get started with our conversation about coronavirus, gender inequality, and the working mom. So panelists, as I read your bio, please turn on your camera and join me on screen if you would. I'm going to start first with Christy Brown. Christy is the Chief Executive Officer of Girl Scouts of Wisconsin Southeast. Hi, Christy. Prior to this role, she was a Vice Chancellor, Finance and Administrative Affairs, and Chief Business and Financial Officer for UWM, overseeing non-academic operations. And her previous positions prior to UWM include positions with MATC, Lutheran Social Services of Wisconsin, and as an associate attorney with Michael Best and Friedrich. So Christy is also a trustee at Carroll University, a director and the past chair of Pathfinders, and a member of the Downtown Rotary Club of Milwaukee, the Wisconsin State Bar, and the International Women's Forum, in addition to Tempo Milwaukee. She's a past board chair of the Wisconsin Association of African American Attorneys and Future Milwaukee. Christy earned her JD and her master's from Duke University and a bachelor's degree from Stanford. Christy joined Tempo in 2013 and is a past Tempo Mentor Award recipient. Christy, thank you so much for joining us today. Next is Victoria Haas. Victoria, if you turn your camera on, is the owner of Affinity Accounting in downtown Milwaukee. Victoria has 15 years of public accounting experience, having served as a tax and accounting professional both for large and small CPA firms, and now focuses on serving small businesses throughout the US. She serves as treasurer of the Maryland Avenue Montessori Fund Board and is a native of Itasca. Did I say that right?
Yes.
I Googled it, thank you. Itasca, Illinois, and holds a Bachelor of Science in Accountancy from University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign and a master's from DePaul. Victoria joined EWL in 2018. Welcome, Victoria. Susan Ranft is next. Susan is the Vice President of Global People and Culture at ManpowerGroup, helping to achieve ManpowerGroup's vision of powering the future of work. Susan has nearly 20 years of consulting and human resource experience, including leadership roles at PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM. Susan has a Master of Education degree from Harvard and a Bachelor of Arts degree from St. Norbert College. She serves on the board of Cristo Rey Jesuit High School and on the Wisconsin People's Maps Commission. Susan joined Tempo Milwaukee in 2018. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And lastly, Lydia Smith is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Kohl. In her role, she leads the development and execution of the company's D&I strategy. Lydia is a graduate of Florida A&M University, where she received an MBA with a concentration in marketing. She's held various roles in IT, marketing, and HR in the corporate world while driving change for the city of Milwaukee as co-owner of Social X, a professional organization focused on connecting, developing, and retaining minority talent in the city. That is very cool. Currently, she's also an adjunct professor at MATC, teaching courses in the business school, in addition to serving on the Social Responsibility Committee for the YMCA and the Marketing Committee for Milwaukee Film. Lydia joined EWL in 2020. Welcome, Lydia. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
Ladies, I am honestly just a little exhausting having read your bios and looking at all of the experience and extracurriculars and volunteer capacities in which you serve. In addition to all of this, I know that you are also working mamas and caregivers. And I am so excited for our robust discussion today. What I would love to do first, before we fully jump in, is when we talk about what audiences we all serve and what roles we all play, I would love for each of you to go through, in addition to the introductions that I've given, and just start by sharing with us a snapshot of sort of your current state personally, which includes the audiences in which you serve, I'm using air quotes, both personally, professionally. Christy, can I start with you?
I am, one of my issues right now is can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Is I have internet issues. So of all the other things I'm juggling, that is an audience that I am not happy to be serving right now. I would start with this, Lori. Thank you so much for having us. I think it's going to be a great discussion. But I was forwarded an article by Jackie Mortensen and Lisa Ateneo, and it was called "Enough Already: Multiple Demands Causing Women to Abandon the Workforce." I'm not sure if any of you saw or heard the story on NPR, but the primary headline is "Women are leaving the workforce at 4 times men." Particularly in September, over 800,000 women left the workforce. And the primary thing that the article is sharing is that we just have too many demands. And so when I read that article, I felt like it did resonate with me, because I have thought over the course of the last 6 months whether or not I should even be, continuing to work. The audiences I serve that are primary to me are my 2 kids. I have a boy 14, a girl 15. They're freshmen and sophomores in high school and reluctant learners. A husband and a dog, Jazzy. And then I have 2 aging parents, one of whom had a stroke about 12 days ago. And at work, I have about 75 employees or so. And then, a board that many of us have, about 20 board members, which includes girls, and about 75 employees, most of whom are women. So that's a very unusual workforce. 95% of them are women. And then we have 16,000 girl members and about 6,000 women, mostly women, adult members. So those are my audiences, very disparate and very, interesting to be able to work through this while I'm going through that.
Thank you, Christy. Susan?
Hi, as Lori mentioned, I lead ManpowerGroup's global HR organization, and I've been working the last 6 months on employee COVID initiatives for our 30,000 employees. So that's a big audience that I serve. I also am the mom of twin 17-year-old girls and a 13-year-old boy. One of my daughters is currently in Spain doing an exchange year, which is a very unique COVID experience. My husband and I have been working from home, but you can see here, I'm in my office today. We had a full Wi-Fi meltdown yesterday when our kids were home all on synchronous virtual. So I'm here as insurance policy today, but alone.
Thank you. We'll add Wi-Fi meltdowns to the list of things. Yes, yes. It sounds like a common
It is the one thing that can put you over the edge.
The great equalizer, isn't it? Lydia.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for this opportunity today. I'm really excited for the discussion that we're going to have. I'd have to echo Christy. I think first thing that comes to mind in terms of my audience and who I'm serving are my daughters. So I am a mother. I have twin daughters that are 10 going on 11 next month, and a 3 going on 30-year-old who is in virtual K3 right now. And that has given us all a run for our money in this house. So that's who I serve primarily in my personal space, but I also really consider my friends, my family, my village, as much as they are here for me. I make it a point to be there for them. So when I think about who I'm serving, it's absolutely that village that is continuously serving me. And then at work, in my role, so often we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the focus is on our diverse associates and what that looks like for them. But for us at Kohl's, we have a saying that you don't have to be to belong, which means you don't have to be a part of one of those diverse groups to belong. And so really the audience that I'm serving is each and every one of our employees, our associates, and making sure that we're striving to create equitable experiences for them.
Amazing, thank you. And lastly, Victoria.
Hi there, thanks so much, Lori. Very excited as well to talk about our topic today. So on the personal side, I have 3 children who are 6 years old, 4 years old, and 2 years old. So we're in the thick of it right now. First grade, K3, also K3, and then the 2-year-old is currently being potty trained. So that was our big win for this week, honestly. But yeah, the CPA firm we service small business accounting, and we do tax planning as well. Small business owners in the professional services space. We're a team of 4 women, and we have always worked remotely from that aspect. And then, you know, on the personal side, you know, we kind of we jokingly refer to ourselves as Hurricane Haas, which is kind of how I feel as a mom, just all the time, even prior to COVID. But now with the pandemic, the hurricane has actually like landed inside my office and our work life at home. And, you know, it's over the past few months, we've just been trying to figure out how to separate that as much as possible and really how to gain back some control of our lives through all of this.
Well, thank you, everyone. And next I'm going to move on. And Christy just mentioned this, and Susan actually mentioned this in a prep session that we had, but it is the Mckinsey Study. For those of you who haven't seen it, each year the global consultancy McKinsey and Company comes out with what they call their Women in the Workplace study. This is 2020 is the 6th year that this study has come out, and the results were honestly a little jaw-dropping. So I just want to read a couple of quick paragraphs because I think it sets the stage for this discussion really well. The events of 2020 have turned workplaces upside down. Under the highly challenging circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, many employees are struggling to do their jobs. Many feel like they're always on now that boundaries between work and home have blurred. They're worried about their family's health and finances. Burnout is a real issue. Women in particular have been negatively impacted. Women, especially women of color, are more likely to have been laid off or furloughed during the COVID-19 crisis, stalling their careers and jeopardizing their financial security. The pandemic has intensified challenges that women already faced. Working mothers have always worked a double shift, quote unquote, a full day of work followed by hours spent caring for children and doing household labor. Now the supports that made this possible, including school and childcare, have been upended. Meanwhile, Black women already faced more barriers to advancement than most other employees. Today, they're also coping with the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on the Black community, and the emotional toll of repeated instances of racial violence falls heavily on their shoulders. As a result of these dynamics, more than 1 in 4 women are contemplating what would have been considered unthinkable just 6 months ago: downshifting their careers or leaving the workforce completely. This is an emergency for corporate America. Companies risk losing women in leadership and future women leaders in unwinding years of painstaking progress toward gender diversity. That was such a powerful report for me to think about. You know, I think in just a couple of quick paragraphs, it really sort of summarizes what most of us probably feel. I mean, Christy, you just expressed that feeling this very same way and contemplating some of these very things that this report talked about. And I'm sure you're not the only one on this call. So I'm looking forward to having a discussion with you all and hopefully even getting to the root of 1 or 2 or 3 things that we can integrate into our own lives to help us see that we are being successful in our day-to-day and give us encouragement moving forward. So again, a very big topic, a lot of robust discussion today to get our arms around. And one of the places that I'd like to start, something that struck me, ladies, during our prep session, was a discussion that we had around the concept of equity. So this is obviously a topic that is always being discussed, and something hopefully that most organizations, if not all, are looking at right now. But I think the term equity really has special significance right now during the COVID pandemic. Lydia, you specifically kicked us off last time with talking about what this means at Kohl's and how it helps you as an organization determine where everybody's at so you can help meet them there. Would you mind kicking us off with a discussion right now about what equity means at Kohl's and in your space?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of different working definitions of equity. And I think each organization has to really define the word and what it means for their organization. But for us, equity means fair, and equity means meeting people where they are. So if you think about, diversity is all about representation. It's the numbers. Inclusion is how people feel But then equity is actually going a step further and saying that, equality is not enough. It's not enough to just say we're going to give, everyone the same thing. It's understanding that whether we're talking about, because of COVID and working from home and having working mothers or fathers, working fathers, regardless of the situation, that each of us might need different resources, different access, different opportunities, different support to be able to not just survive, but thrive, right? And that's truly what equity is about. And when I hear that Mckinsey study and I think about women leaving leadership roles in the way that the article talks about the emergency, that corporate America has right now, what I think about is those women likely need something different than what they've been getting. And that thing, whatever that is, whatever that resource, that tool, whatever the support, guidance, mentorship, sponsorship, whatever that is going to be different than what men in the organization right now or historically have gotten. And so companies have to be okay with that. And at Kohl's, we're okay with the fact that it's not going to be a blanket one size fits all approach. And then we really have to start to create this culture of empathetic leadership where we're listening, where we're listening to understand what those gaps and what those needs are, and then meeting people where they are with support. Oh, Lori, I think you're still on mute.
You're right. Thank you so much. And Susan, would you like to add to that about what Manpower is doing in the same space?
Yeah, certainly very much concur with Lydia for the situation. And, I worry about women leaving the workforce. I also worry that women may just not be able to take stretch assignments or assert themselves, or may not be as visible for someone to tap them on the back for a networking opportunity or a development opportunity. And so, yeah, even more critical that we're much more deliberate about how we work with each individual in a sort of one size fits one situation. And at ManpowerGroup, we pivoted like everybody else pretty quickly in March to working flexibly and working from home. But what we did is we took the opportunity to say, okay, let's modernize our culture. And we put it on paper, and we created a program. It's called Work Your Way, where, between the manager and the employee, they can come up with a scheduling flexibility, the virtual work flexibility, because we do have some branches as well as office spaces that we work in. And it really is focused on the individual needs. Of course, we support that from an organizational perspective with well-being resources and in all of those kind of things that you might expect to help embrace individuals and provide them what they need. But it's really important at this manager-employee level to be able to figure it out.
Now, Christy and Victoria, you both expressed that your workforce is primarily, if not completely, women. What have you found giving everyone what they need to mean within your organization for your employees? Christy, I'll have you go first.
Sure, it is what has already kind of been described, a lot of flexibility and a lot of one-on-one conversation with all of the employees. But the other thing that we've done, that because I do think there are similarities and commonalities for all employees in terms of things that they need right now. So we've had speakers on mental health issues and tips on, how to stay sane during this time, and inspirational speakers. So we've done things that we think would be helpful for all of our staff. But the primary thing that we've done in terms of responding to needs individually is around flexibility in those conversations with managers that I think Susan already kind of highlighted. The only other thing that we never have pursued this before, even though I should have because I'm a Tempo member, is mentorship in our organization. So we just recently, in the last 6 months, started to ask employees if they are interested in having a mentor. So there can be a relationship that's not a supervisory one, with someone that they can talk to and maybe express, if they weren't able to express their needs to their supervisor.
Mm-hmm. And Victoria, for you, leading a small team, just of 4, have you found that you need sort of a release valve, or do you need to kind of call in some additional support at this time?
Yeah, I think that it's, being a small team, we have the ability to already be very flexible just because we are so small. We have a lot of communication that's going on constantly because we'll just use Slack, or you might use Microsoft Teams or something like that. But you know, even though we were always a very flexible culture, the level of flexibility has even needed to be stepped up from that. And people might need time to step away from the computer to help with schooling, to go to appointments, to take care of emergencies, when normally the kids would be away and they would be in school. And so my employees, some of them will work, some will work in the evening when their spouses might be watching the kids, and then she takes them during the day, or as a result, the flexible schedules, there was also a need for more asynchronous communication and better workflow systems to just show more clearly what our expectations were, when deadlines were, where we were in terms of progress on any given project, and where we were facing delays or obstacles.
Mm-hmm. And Victoria, do you feel like your employees have all been, because I think sometimes as women, right, we try to just like never say no, like take and take and take, and we think we can handle it all ourselves. Have your employees been forthcoming about raising their hands and saying, I need to try something new or different, like I'm getting close to my breaking point?
Yeah, I'd say that they are being upfront about that because it's sort of already ingrained in our firm culture. And, obviously being just 4 people, so we have bi-weekly meetings, and this is always on the agenda to talk about. And they know that they can speak up if something isn't working or if they have suggestions or improvements. We have a dedicated Slack channel called Internal Schedules, so we might know, right away if somebody's shift needs to change. We are constantly being asked to pivot at a moment's notice if something changes with the school schedule, like maybe there was a COVID case and everyone has to quarantine or something. And so, as part of this effort to increase the whole asynchronous communication, we have also a daily stand-up on Slack at the end of each day. So each person will send a message to recap generally like what was worked on and what's going to be worked on tomorrow and what challenges they face. And then it takes 5 minutes to leave the message, and then it lets the team have more visibility. And for me as a leader to jump in more proactively and assist if there is a problem, rather than kind of waiting to see if things are being handled or not, and taking that guesswork out. And I know we're smaller, but it could work at a larger firm if you break it down by team.
Mm-hmm. And that's my next goal, is to throw the question out to the rest of the ladies on the call to ask the same. Are you seeing your employees raise their hands if they do need an additional level of support? Or what are the means that you use to try and determine how to jump in and help someone if their work or schedule may show that it looks like they need some help, but they're just not raising their hand yet? How do you go about determining that? Anyone want to jump in? Christy, thank you.
Well, just for us, we have been trying to, we still are, running a business. And so we've been monitoring performance. And one of the things that occurred was when we started we had not been monitoring a certain activity that they had been doing in the past, but we then saw some numbers fall off. So we started monitoring it. And what we found out was that at least one of our employees didn't have the right equipment at home. We were not able to easily pivot to being at home. When what Susan was saying that Manpower was able to do, we had to get employees computers and do all those sorts of things. We're an in-person sort of business, right? Relationships with people. So she didn't have the tools that she needed, but was not able to speak up and say that. So for us, one of the things is just trying to make sure that people are performing, with the idea, of course, of being empathetic when they are not, or if there's a dip in performance. But if there's a consistent level that's not being met, then we investigate. And sometimes it results in learning that, oops, we didn't give you what you needed. Or sometimes it is that the person is just dealing with this in a way that is not conducive to them working so well. So then you try to get other support for them.
And from the corporate perspective, Susan and Lydia, any tips that you give your employees to say, here's a way, here's how we'd like you to signal to us if you need more support?
Well, we've done a lot of surveying, some pulse surveys and different ways of listening to, so we're asking essentially. In addition, hopefully, and we really try to foster this with empathetic leaders, is that there's trust already within the relationship and within the team and within the greater team, so that people feel comfortable saying what they need. And then it's important for us as leaders to be able to show that there aren't consequences for that, right? So what we do can really help establish or not establish the trust within the team, depending on how we react or accommodate or pivot or do whatever we need to do to ensure that that person can be as successful as possible.
I think those are all great. I'd echo all those sentiments from Susan. The two things that I would add, I think communication is so important. So we've, ever since March, have stayed very closely in working with our internal communications team to make sure that we're reinforcing these messages and that associates feel empowered to have those conversations. So one side is absolutely on the part of our leaders to be empathetic and to be starting these conversations, but so that our associates feel empowered to raise their hand or to bring up issues, and that they know that there is it's a safe space for them to do so. And then I think the final thing would be role modeling. So leading by example. When you have a leader that has a child running around in the background and they don't apologize for it, it's not oh, I'm so sorry. And it's just, this is life. This is the way that things are. This is the day that we're living. It helps give others that feeling that, okay, I can raise my hand if I have these same issues when I see my leaders sort of role modeling that they're going through the same challenges that I am too. So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, that's great. And I'd like to build on that. I love the idea of leading by example and empathetic leadership. And ladies, you've all spoken to the fact that you're all moms, you're all juggling kids, and obviously leadership positions as well. How are you getting what you need? And I'm sure the answer is some days I'm not, right? I'm the last one. I keep emptying my bucket and not filling my bucket. But if you could name one or two things, and Lydia, because you're still on my screen, I'm going to start with you. What would they be to get what you need right now to make sure that, again, you're putting your mask on first, because a lot of people are relying on you to keep the household running and things at work as well?
Yeah, number one is my faith. So I will put that out there and say that this has been a very strong prayer season for me, and I've needed that so much. And number two has been what we call my quarantine. So it's a group, it's probably 8 ladies that ever since this started, that's my go-to. That's the first text message, thread on my phone when something crazy is happening in a meeting at work or after work. I need to, relax and just let everything out. And they understand because they're working in this space as well. They are mothers, they are wives, they're, going through all these different juggling acts right now too. And, I having that group of women as a support system, as my village during this time is invaluable. I can't imagine trying to get through all of these things and being who I need to be for my family and then who I need to be at work if I didn't have that group that I could be completely honest and transparent with about what I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Victoria, how about you?
Oh, I agree with that completely. I mean, I feel like that's just the base of it, just having that support system, people to just share your experiences with. I guess the other foundational thing for me was to find a very stable solution for childcare. Just the ages that my kids are, so 6, 4, and 2, like they obviously need different things at different ages, and they have different schedules at school and pickups, drop-offs, activities and things. And I was finding before, when we were trying to sort of piece things together between my husband and I, that I couldn't have like a focused amount, like a consistent focused amount of time at work. There was always some kind of emergency going on. So that has been an absolute game changer. We vetted a number of different childcare options. So we looked at daycare. We had our kids in daycare before, so we looked at the daycare again. We even put our names in for an au pair, and we were interviewing au pairs. We thought about the nanny, and we ultimately decided on the full-time nanny, because we felt like that would just allow me to be able to, I don't know, bet on the most in terms of being able to have something consistent and stable, no matter what the children's schooling situation was. And then secondly, I'm just kind of like sort of this like type A person. So like I just felt like I needed to get more done with less time, or the same, just trying to get more productive.
Which I was going to say, might I add, that's the first thing that every working mom says upon having a kid, right? Now I'm just going to be more efficient. And now, try to take it to the next level. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been like listening to all these podcasts about these like hacks, and ways to be more efficient or be more productive. And like one of the things that I had as a takeaway was just like, there's a lot of talk about batching things. So like I have a day of the week after a long day at work, like you're just mentally fatigued, and you're from, decision making and all that. And so to the extent that I could take that decision making off, I thought that was helpful. So I just have days of the weeks where I like do the groceries, the shopping, the laundry, the cleaning, and stuff. And so that's just already decided for me. Like, I don't have to think about that. But then also another thing was, so like on the weekends, I'll put together things that my kids need for each activity that they're in separate bags, so that when the time comes for that activity, I'm not running around getting ready for it. So it's like we have a soccer bag, and we have a tennis bag and a swim bag. And so the kids can just like grab that when the time comes, and, it's just any extra time savings that I can get, whether at work or at home, like that's super important for me.
Amazing. You're doing a phenomenal job. Susan, how about you?
Goodness. I'm not that organized, but I admire it greatly. I'm an advocate for the 15-minute power nap. That restores me and can allow me to work late into the night. And I try to be grateful. I try to lean into my gratefulness of just the little things, of family being able to eat dinner together, of my team thriving. So I definitely lean into that. I try not to take the world on my shoulders, although I do that frequently. And I have a friend who's a nurse, and we literally text each other one word that says walk. And we meet each other on the corner. So like others, the village is critically important to me as well.
Great. And Christy?
Right, the same thing that everyone else has said, kind of, faith, family, friends, trying to lean on others. The thing that I'll add that's a little bit different is I have found Audible. I mean, probably lots of people already knew about Audible, but it allows you to, read, but not really read, but you can do it when you're doing other things, and you still are able to either get knowledge or get, senseless fluff, which was my last reading episode, which was great. So it's something that I had not done until now, because I hadn't really thought about that. I always, got the book, but I love it.
Excellent. Thanks, ladies. Those are some great tips. I want to shift us back for just a moment from more of the personal side back to sort of the business side. Now, Christy, we know you're running a nonprofit, but you're running the nonprofit, so it fits under the same umbrella here. But what have you learned through this process of leadership during this time, recognizing that everyone needs something different and that we hold ourselves to very high standards? Has there been anything about this process or responding to the needs of your employees that has caused you to sort of check yourself, or some things that beliefs that you had previously held about leadership or running your business? Susan, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I think I'm the one who used the term check yourself when we had our prep. Yeah, I'm an HR person, and with my team, I met with each individually and we came up with their flexible work your way plan, so check the box. I did, what I was supposed to. But then I was realizing it's still hard. It's hard every day. It's hard for everybody every day. And for me as a manager, it's hard. I've had to learn to be more planful, to be able to expect perhaps not a response from a team member at 11 a.m. when I'm working, but maybe that response is going to come at 11:30 p.m. And I have to adjust expectations. We have to be prioritizing radically to ensure that we're really focusing on what's important and urgent and not just urgent. But I have to take some deep breaths. I like to think I'm a progressive, open-minded leader. I have my own family challenges at home, but that I really have to every day be conscious and aware and putting my best foot forward to try to make it best for everyone. So I'm aware that it's not easy. And I'm a vulnerable, empathetic leader, like we all talk about. And sometimes it doesn't come out in the best ways. But to know that it's a journey and we're all working on it together, as sort of what we've been leaning on.
Great. Anyone else have anything to add in this space? Want to jump in here about learnings that you've had through leading right now?
I'll jump in. I think for me, thinking back to COVID and how our organization responded, I think we all learned how flexible, how fast we can modify our approach, how we can pivot. And I think we learned that we're capable of doing so much more than we even gave ourselves credit for. So it's interesting kind of going into this next phase of taking that same approach, that we probably shouldn't be saying no to a lot of things. We should be figuring out, how do we get to a yes? And of course there are some things that we'll have to say no to, but just taking that mental approach of there's got to be a way for us to figure it out. I think we've all been forced to figure out so many things over the last few months that for me as a leader, it's pushed me to, not necessarily accepting that quick no all the time and saying, is there a way for us to think outside the box that we can actually make this happen? How can we get this done, especially if it's something for our associates? That's been a huge learning for me over the last few months.
So as leaders in businesses as well, based on what we saw in the Mckinsey study, and I know we're seeing this ourselves within the workspace, that we're all just missing a bit the osmosis learning opportunities that typically come with being in a work environment. We talk about elements of running a business, which include, how do we get women to that next promotion? How do we get women to that next raise? Are there things that you all as business leaders and nonprofit leaders are looking ahead to in the next year to make sure that women in particular that you work with, who may have more challenges outside the home and things to manage right now, aren't being stunted in their growth because of some of the other things happening during COVID? Susan, can I start with you again? Sorry, I know you have your mic on, so I'm just going to pick on you for a second.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we are well aware that these are things that we have to work on and that we have to figure out. So whether it's programmatic, like working with our leaders to ensure that there's awareness of it, it's hard. We don't have all the answers, obviously. But obviously awareness is part of it. I think the one-on-one relationships and that is going to go a long way, but we have to enable our managers to be able to have those conversations really well. And just to let people know that this is a thing, and to continually remind all people, that to speak up and just to say, this is your challenge. And if you have to be a little bit more assertive, perhaps. You may have to go a little bit out of your comfort zone to network, to put yourself out there, to ask for things. just to tell people that's good to do and that's okay.
Mhm. Christy, any things that you're doing in particular at the Girl Scouts to make sure that women continue on the growth paths that they may have been on pre-COVID?
Well, we, our budget year just starts October 1st. And one of the things that we put into the budget because of the situation that we're in is much more professional development, training for an expense for our staff, because there are lots of different things that we think that they need to know now based on the experience we just went through in terms of being able to be more adaptable, to be willing to be, change, and also technology things, which we realized we were sorely missing in terms of training our employees on. So I hope that, I want them to stay with Girl Scouts, but if they are able to gain the skills that we want to start to be able to teach them, they can maybe go anywhere and to different places if we've given them better tools.
That's a great point.
Victoria or Lydia, anything to add here?
I would echo what's been shared. The things I would add in addition to, professional development, looking at those programs specifically for women, opportunities both internally and external. And then, acceleration, what does that look like? We're talking a lot about and having intentional conversations around how do we remove bias from our talent assessment processes, from performance reviews, from succession planning. When you're having those conversations, what does that look like to ensure that we're having conversations and they're the right conversations, and we're not bringing in assumptions about someone, based on, their situation right now. They're working at home with kids and things like that. And I think that's so important that we're checking ourselves, to Susan's point earlier, and we're thinking about, in those moments, in those conversations, might there be bias, or might certain things be being brought up that could, inhibit, someone's growth, particularly a woman's growth. And so I think that's really important too.
Great. We do have a quick question from the chat. We would love, ladies, your input and any suggestions here, but Emily asks, is there any advice for communicating with a direct supervisor about flexibility and communication needs, especially when that direct supervisor is a single 40-year-old male and maybe not understanding what some of the full range of challenges are right now? Any advice?
I think that you always have to be authentic and honest and hope that the person on the other side of the conversation is hearing what you're saying. But you have to have the courage and the confidence to move forward with that conversation, even though it might be not heard, or, the person might not be receptive to it, but you won't be able to get what you need if you're not able to articulate what your needs are. So other than being honest about it and coming forward with whatever your needs are, I don't have any other helpful tips. Don't do it on a Friday at 5, maybe. I mean, I'm not sure. Right.
And come with a proposal of some solutions, some examples of things, in addition to the needs, what are you willing to put in as well?
And I just echo to leverage support from your human resources department wherever you can. So, at Kohl's, we have human resources, business partners, and individuals that can help support in some of those conversations. Sometimes I know in each organization it looks different, but I would say leverage those resources too when you're looking to have these conversations.
I would say also just to kind of put some of that on your supervisor too, of asking them to be very specific about what they're asking of you and how you're supposed to be stepping up, and just being really communicative on both sides. It's not just on you, it's on them. It's you give, and then they also have to give, and you have to meet in the middle.
Just thinking through the tempo lens for a second as well too, especially if there are internal mentors involved or advocates, sponsors within the organization. Those can really help facilitate some of those conversations as well. Great. So we've got just a couple of minutes left here in the session, and I wanted to just give a quick anecdote about something that happened to me recently, because again, I'm a huge fan of vulnerable leadership, empathetic leadership. And personally, I have 3 male partners at my company, 1 with grown children and 2 with stay-at-home partners. And recently, one of my partners said to me, I don't know how you're doing it. We're struggling at home, and it's one of our jobs to take care of the kids and get them through their virtual learning day. And for me, I felt like such a weight was lifted off my shoulders just because there was recognition from one of my partners that I wasn't failing them, right? I didn't ask the question, and I didn't, I was just kind of soldiering on, but that sort of volunteered information and encouragement. And I don't even think he meant to do it for that reason, but it just was so reassuring to me that I wasn't failing, because I think that is some of our underlying fear in all of this is just, am I failing my children? Am I failing my employer? Am I failing in different aspects of my life? So I'm going to start. My ask to each one of you ladies is, could you share an example of something that has made a difference for you or for one of your employees that we each might take away from this session today? So my example would be to tell one person that she's doing a good job. There are a lot of people out there right now worried that they're failing in different aspects of their lives. And knowing that we may not, we might be at 95% or 92%, but we're giving it our all right now, just kind of giving someone a reminder or a reinforcement that she is doing a great job. Lydia, would you mind starting with us about something that's made a difference for you or one of your employees recently?
Yeah, mine is actually today. I sat in and listened to a panel discussion, Madison 365, their leadership summit. And Judge Everett Mitchell, I had to pull it up on my phone so I can say it right, but he said something on there that I thought was so empowering. And I actually feel like it will change how I show up moving forward. But he actually said, stop trying to defend I decided to stop trying to defend who I am and just be who I am. And when I heard that, so many things went off in my head. And I think for us, particularly as, working as mothers in this time, we tend to lead with the explanation or defending, oh, I'm sorry, my kid, just came in, or, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late, I had to do this. Oh, I'm sorry. And we do spend so much time defending. It's like a natural response. But I'm going to continue to share that with my team and with others, and to do my best to role model that behavior, because I think that gives people permission, and it empowers others to just be who we are right now in this time, in this space, with everything that's happening right now in our world. So that literally just happened this morning, and that's mine.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Victoria?
Yeah, I think for us as a firm, 4 of us, we are leaning on each other a lot for support to get through this. We all, I feel like I'm a very empathetic leader in this respect, because I am going through the same thing that they are all going through. And so we'll do things like, share pictures of our families and share funny memes and gifts, just to try to liven up the mood, and then create sort of a culture around that. And then as part of that, with that kind of culture, we tend to learn organically what each of our needs are to get through this, and it just is very natural.
Great. Susan?
I love all of those ideas, and particularly the one about boosting people up, even in a micro way every day. I'm going to take that one away. Thank you, Lori. My own leader doesn't have children, and she's an incredible role model for me, because she puts herself in other people's shoes so effectively and so in her heart, and will check in and ask and listen. I just think simply listening, giving yourself the time and the space just to listen, and not just run on the next to-do list things, just simply open up, acknowledge, and listen. And that's something that's been role model to me, and I try to do with others as well.
Excellent. And Christy, how about you?
So what makes a difference for me is that I have a really cool job where I get to see really inspiring girls all the time. And so one of the things that happened last night was that we had a recognition ceremony across the United States for National Gold Award Girl Scouts. There are 10 picked in the country every year, and there are thousands of girls who get their gold award. And one of them was from our council. Her name is Carly Neiman. She did a project fostering equity through in literacy. And she was awarded with all these other girls. It was the ceremony last night was just made my tears come, because it's just a nod to the future, which is going to definitely be brighter than what we're existing in right now. And so I know I love the fact that I'm able to have a job, even though it's struggling right now in terms of home and work, but I have a job where we can produce girls who are awesome and who are going to change the world. So that's what makes me keep going and what gives me hope.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies, all so much for joining me today. And thank you to all of you who joined us through the Zoom chat as participants. It's been just a great discussion, and hopefully some good takeaways for all of you as well as you continue moving on, leading and living through COVID. One other quick update for you all. Sorry, I'm going to shrink my screen here, Marit, so I can get my right update in. But before I go, I want to plug our upcoming Tempo Talk session. So 2 weeks from today, on October 23rd, we'll be back again in discussion of cultural and economic components to housing in Milwaukee. Certainly an interesting topic. And then we're taking a bit of a break in November, but invite you to the big event that I know I am so excited for, featuring, no big deal, Gab Union. So if you're not familiar with who she is, visit your local supermarket and you will find her gracing the cover of almost every magazine right now, including one of Time's most influential people. You can find more information and how to register for that event with Gab Union at www.tempomilwaukee.org, because this is a virtual event. Everyone is welcome. There are options for individual tickets as well as full-on group sponsorship. So register today. We would love for you all to join us. We will be back with our regularly scheduled Tempo Talks on December 4th for a program on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So thank you again for joining us all on a beautiful Friday afternoon. We hope that you can not only enjoy your weekend ahead, but hopefully some of this beautiful sunshine get on Friday afternoon. Thank you all and have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Lori.